Welcome back to the weight room. Thanks for tuning in again. We have a interesting interview today, interesting conversation with a CrossFit athlete, Taylor Williamson, who is, within those that CrossFit world. So it should be a very interesting conversation. Before we start, just want to remind you to subscribe to the weight room on YouTube and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Other than that, let's get this thing going. Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Good.
Really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Just thought it'd be cool to talk to somebody with so much experience in the world of fitness, and CrossFit's obviously a very popular thing as well. So it'd be cool to kind of get both the general fitness as well as just the CrossFit stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you just want to start things out by introducing yourself a little bit, maybe a little bit of backgrounds, a little bit about you, who you are, that kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah, my name's Taylor. Taylor Williamson. I CrossFit Mayhem Freedom's team this year. I have a background in CrossFit I think I've been saying for probably 5 years now. So it's more like been doing CrossFit for about 10 years, been to the CrossFit Games 2016, 17, 18, 19 on teams. And then this year, obviously planning to go with CrossFit Mayhem Freedom. So that's my CrossFit background. As far as just health and fitness, I've always just kind of been a health fitness nerd, started lifting in high school, played college volleyball, 3-sport athlete all through middle school, high school, dabbled with track in college a little bit, but focused more on volleyball, and kind of just naturally shifted into CrossFit from there. Just kind of getting out of volleyball, didn't really know what to do with myself, and started picking up CrossFit. So that's kind of my athletic history, I guess.
Where did you play college volleyball?
I played at a small Division II in Kansas City, William Jewell College.
How was the strength and conditioning stuff there?
Honestly, more for the volleyball players, we didn't really do much that was like mandatory, but I kind of went above and beyond just because I liked it. But I think really they mostly focused on like the football program and baseball program, and not as much on the girls, I'd say, just as I don't know if that was unique to my school. I don't think it probably was. I think most of at least D2, D3 focused a little less on that and more on like the sports specific kind of stuff.
So you said you kind of got into sports at an early age. Was that something that was really kind of starting at your interest, or was that something that maybe parents kind of pushed you into initially? How did that start?
I think it was pretty much always my interest. My parents were always very supportive in whatever I wanted to do, but I think had it been like piano lessons or acting or like whatever, they probably would have been just as supportive. So yeah, I think it all kind of came from me, which is probably one of the reasons that it was so sustainable, because it's something that I enjoy and choose for myself versus being like forced to do, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like a lot of, maybe more these days, people, maybe not even really, but I think a lot of kids are becoming less physically active and more active doing other things. So interesting to see kind of how sports will kind of play out in the future with that. I think there's still definitely those people, those kids and those parents who are into it, but I feel like it's less recreational now, less something to do, and more about like, hey, let's try to get a college scholarship. So I think, it'll be interesting to see where sports go, I think, in the future.
Yeah, I agree more, especially more with the advances in technology and kids being more technologically savvy. And there has definitely been a shift in what kids do for fun. I mean, we'll see where that plays out. I agree.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see too how kind of the fitness world reacts to the growing youth because people are specializing in their sports, and they might, they want trainers at such an early age now to do specific things for sports, and it'll just be interesting to see how the industry of fitness, maybe you'll have specific gyms, maybe you'll have, stuff like that are for, a more young population to maybe, I don't know, I wouldn't say like necessarily only for the young population, but I feel like there's potential for that.
We'll definitely see what sorts of programs open up. At the same time, I don't think it's super beneficial for a young athlete to specialize too early. I mean, just get their feet wet at as many things as you can, play team sports, don't go diving into just one sport or one activity or CrossFit too soon, because you can always go to that later. You know what I mean? I think it's really important for kids to have like a normal, try a bunch of things kind of upbringing. You know what I mean? I think people probably just think they're giving their kids the best opportunities, and maybe they are, but it's very young. I mean, it's very young to ask kids to be conscious of what they're committing to. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's, endless hours of practice. There's, depending on your age, there's conditioning, there's, traveling, the expense of that. But yeah, back to kind of your journey and everything. So you started lifting in high school, you said?
Yeah. Yep.
So was that for sports?
Yeah. Just for high school sports. Yeah. And I just honestly liked it. So I took all the, weightlifting classes and did 0 hour before school and summer weightlifting and stuff like that.
What kind of training was that? A pretty decent level of training for that level of for high school level?
Yeah, I'd actually say it was. I went to a 6A high school, which is the biggest in Kansas, the biggest, division, I guess, in Kansas. And our football coach ran our weightlifting program. And I feel like as far as high school weightlifting programs go, it was actually very well done. And we really got after it. They got a lot done. It was mostly football players, obviously, but there were a couple of us in there that were, and we kind of made a name for ourselves, I guess, if we stuck with it and worked hard. You know what I mean? It was pretty well done for high school. And even just as a high school female athlete, Intimidation Factor, I think that's huge, to try to just get girls in there feeling comfortable. We didn't have girl classes or anything like that. It was everyone was all together, and you're in there with the football players. And I understand how that can be a little bit intimidating for a lot of girls out there. But I think you just have to realize that if you're going to work hard, people will respect you. It doesn't really matter how much weight you're lifting or whatever. If you're strong, if you're a girl, just go in there and work hard and sweat and do the work, and everything will be okay. People aren't going to judge you. So I think just a lot of young athletes are intimidated to get in there and get their hands dirty, I guess.
Yeah, I can definitely see, especially for a female, if it's a co-ed class, I could see where it'd be pretty intimidating. Was it maybe to some degree a social thing to do as well, or was it not really was it not really used for that for the social aspect of just kind of hanging out with everybody?
In my experience at my school, it definitely wasn't social, just because it was very planned out down to the minute. Because they really got after it. But I mean, before school or before class, after class, those were definitely more social activities and opportunities, but not during the class, I'd say. So
you said you started doing CrossFit after your volleyball career was over, correct?
A little bit before, just summers and winters, but nothing too serious, because I was playing volleyball year round. So I really kind of picked up CrossFit more as a sport after volleyball was over. Gotcha. So a little more intense training and specific stuff. Yeah.
So at what point did you, how long into it were you when you started to, think, hey, I might want to actually compete and do some more serious training with this?
I was pretty hooked right away, and I was doing some smaller local comps and kind of getting my feet wet here and there. But yeah, I was pretty into it right away. And I think I recognized that it was something that I could put a lot of work into and see a lot of results. And that's really an addicting thing for me. I like those sorts of things where you can see your progress and see your, results of the work you do.
Gotcha. So what kind of draws you to CrossFit over, say, powerlifting or bodybuilding?
I think CrossFit incorporates all those things instead of just focusing on one. So I get to do a little of all of it, and I just don't get bored with it, really. So if I just felt like I had to go to the gym and just work on my bench and my squat and my power cleans and stuff every day, and that's all I got to do, I think I'd get bored really fast. Whereas CrossFit, I can go in and change it up session to session, day to day, constantly varied. I mean, kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah. So when you initially went in and you were like, okay, I want to do I want to try CrossFit. What was that first kind of workout like compared to the other workouts you had previously done?
I was really confused, I remember, because I was coming out of a track season where they like tell you, you know, you're doing this many 400s and here's the paces you have to hit and here's your rest time. And I remember the workout, it was out of one of my friend's garages actually, and it was like 3 or 4 rounds for time, 400-meter run, something in the garage, like power cleans and like sit-ups or something. And I was like, okay, well, how fast do my runs need to be? Like, what's my pace? And she's like, you know, it's just as fast as you can go. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, am I running 75-second 400s? Like, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, it just wasn't, I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. So it was really new and really like trying to figure out how to operate with this new sort of workout. But it was fun. I liked it a lot. It was really addicting right out of the gate.
And how many people were in the class or whatever with you during your kind of your first couple workouts, your first month, or however long that initial period was?
It was actually just me and a friend out of her garage gym, which then developed into Junction City CrossFit. So it was a CrossFit gym out of her garage, and now it's its own business. Amazing facility in my hometown, Junction City.
Is she part of kind of teaching you CrossFit, like just teaching you how to do it, what to do, you know, the principles of it?
Yeah, I'd say so. Tools of what CrossFit was and all the movements. So yeah, definitely.
And how long did you train with her as far as like being at her place?
I still see her every time I go back to see my parents, and we train together. So it's been a long time now.
At what point did you decide to move to the gym that kind of you started to train more competitively at? I
graduated college and got recruited to go to CrossFit OC3's gym in Iowa. So with that move, I started working as a medical scribe for an orthopedic surgeon there and training CrossFit at their gym, coaching, doing both those things. So that was kind of the big transition into like a more competitive style programming and more competitive style gym for sure up to Iowa.
What are some of the key differences between the way you were training initially and then how you were training at that new gym?
I would just say one, atmosphere, because you're always surrounded by just competitors and people who push you in different sorts of WODs, and you're never really working out alone. And then two, just the programming. It's really difficult to program things that are challenging for yourself because you usually don't want to do them is the problem. So picking programming and making sure that you hit all your weaknesses and you do the really hard things, and just those two biggest things, I'd say, just the atmosphere and the programming.
Yeah, I think that definitely makes a huge difference. And I think during quarantine, a lot of people kind of struggled with that aspect because they were used to going to the gym and kind of being motivated by the people around them. Did you find any of that, kind of any of those struggles?
Yeah, absolutely. During quarantine, I think most people probably did. It's really hard to hold yourself accountable and maintain doing the sorts of things you're doing when you're completely thrown out of your environment and your routine. So I think it's totally kind of a normal reaction, but still at the end of the day, you just have to do whatever you can with whatever you can, you know? But yeah, that's definitely, thankfully, coming to an end most places, quarantine, but definitely challenging.
Yeah, and did you see, or how long did it take before you kind of built those relationships? Because I feel like CrossFit's kind of a, more of a community working out together. So at what point was it kind of like, or maybe it's your personality, maybe it's not, but like less awkward coming in and like working out with new people and like how they do it and how you're doing it, and like, you know what I'm saying? Like at what point did those relationships start to build to where you're like comfortable working out with those people?
Yeah, I think especially in my situation, it happened pretty fast just because I was kind of recruited to go there on a team. So it's kind of like when you go to college as just a student versus going to college as a student athlete. If you go to college and you have a team there waiting for you, you already have like a group of friends. So it's really helpful. You like have friends built in basically to this brand new environment. So same kind of thing with my move to Iowa. I moved there and already automatically had this awesome group of like 8 or 10 people just like ready to be my friends. So that was definitely unique, I think, with my situation. But I think most gyms are very welcoming and very open to people working any level of fitness. You know what I mean? So I think that is definitely something that is unique with CrossFit specifically. I can't speak to all gyms, but most of the gyms I've been to have been that way.
I've never actually been to a CrossFit gym, but I know a few people who do it, and it just seems like they're very community based, and it's very like, oh, let's motivate each other. It's kind of like having, in a way, like a personal trainer, like all your workout buddies are like personal trainers who are there to like motivate you. It's pretty cool because unless you have a training partner at a normal gym, you really kind of don't have that kind of thing, or obviously a personal trainer, but going to just a regular gym, it's almost like it's just you out there. You walk in, you work out, and maybe you say hi to some people, but typically it's that kind of thing where it's just kind of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you find that like when you started to do more competitively and you got recruited to go to kind of a team, did you feel like you were kind of going, I don't really know if it's like this, but like college part 2 kind of in a way, like how you were training and everything?
Kind of. Look at it that way. I haven't really left college yet then. But yeah, kind of in a way, I'd say, especially just because it was still like I was getting hours as a medical scribe with our orthopedic surgeon. So I was kind of building my like professional resume to then apply for PA school. So still working on that and then still maintaining the student athlete in that way. So yeah, it's definitely relatable.
It's interesting to me because I feel like unless you're going to do, I guess, bodybuilding or powerlifting, most people or CrossFit, I guess, most people just go to the gym and kind of just work out and whatever kind of system they have for themselves. Is it the programming based on each individual on a CrossFit team, or is it based on kind of the team as a whole?
Yes. All. It just depends on the day, honestly. But yeah, as a Murph, to try to focus on things that I know I will be worst at so that we can close that gap. That makes sense? So I won't have to hold the team back on certain things. And everyone on the team does that with their own individual weaknesses. But then we also have to focus on things as a team that we need to improve as well. So there's a little give and take on both sides there for sure. Are
all the workouts together, or do you have separate training, or maybe some of both?
Some of both. Yep, some of both. I'm with the team usually Thursday night through Sunday, so weekends, kind of just depending on my school schedule. But yeah, a little of both. But it is a lot of working out alone as well. Just kind of depends on the week, really.
Yeah. So is it? Are y'all kind of like really close, really tight? You do stuff together outside of the CrossFit world?
I would say back in my younger days, yeah. But now that I'm 27, which I'm not even old, but people are starting to get married and have families, so you kind of see a natural progression toward that side of life. But to answer that, yeah, definitely. It does go beyond just being teammates. You make friends and maybe even lifelong friends out of it as well.
So if somebody would want to, maybe they have a little CrossFit experience, maybe they're, sliding under the radar, how would they get to a team, get to be recruited by a team?
Probably just reach out. Start by just doing the open. Don't be afraid to make some contact with people and just kind of explore your options, really. It's kind of the way that it always gets started, Gotcha. So is it typical to do that more, to reach out more, or is it typical to kind of just be seen and be contacted? I'd say both, and it just kind of depends on the year too. This year they shifted back to affiliate teams, which means that the people have to go to the same gym together, versus in years past, the last couple of years, it was super teams. So you could be from anywhere, any group of 4. So it just kind of depends on what the rules of CrossFit are at the time that you're looking. But yeah, if you are interested in being on a team, I would definitely contact your gym or just see what the deal is and see what the options are. Never know. Right. Never know until you ask.
Absolutely, yeah. And what's kind of the density of teams? How many teams would a town have? And I know obviously it's based on the size of that town, but would there be like in a city, in like a typical maybe like mid-sized city, would there be like 10 teams, 20 teams, 100 teams?
Oh, probably just one. Yeah, maybe more than one, but probably only. It really just depends on your density of girls, to be honest with you, because fit men are way easier to find than women that can do all the movements and that are fit and well-rounded. So it just kind of depends on how many girls you have, which most teams are dependent on the girls, honestly. But yeah, usually you're looking at 1 to 3 teams per city, just kind of depending on where you're at in the United States.
Is there some sort of like pipeline that the gyms kind of start early with people and, you know, build up that athlete?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you find someone that is interested in competing and if you feel comfortable coaching them or have experience in the competitive world, you can definitely start pushing their boundaries a little bit and working on their weaknesses and just kind of see where it goes. I think that's probably where most athletes at some point begin, is just at your local gym, being thrown into a local comp and making it or actually being good at it, and it just kind of spirals from there. So I think that's definitely not out of the question.
Is there a certain like sport that most high level CrossFitters come from? Is like track and field, football, basketball, like baseball or softball? Is there a specific one that has more than another?
I wouldn't say there's one specific one, but I would say that most of them, like me, like retired from their sport or, you know, graduated college or whatever the case may be, and like needed something to fill the hole. Like the general timeline for most athletes is that they were college athletes, graduated, and then picked up CrossFit. But I don't think one sport really over the other.
I think you mentioned it before, but what was your first year within the CrossFit Games, like actually attending or participating?
2016.
2016. Okay, so in 2016, was that the first year that you were with that team, or was there kind of like a period to where you trained and then maybe like a year or two later you entered the games?
That was my first year with that team. I moved to Iowa in January, and then we competed as a team in July at the games.
Gotcha. So how many people are typically on a single team? Is there kind of like a normal sport where you have like people who are just kind of there in case somebody gets hurt or something like that?
Yeah. Back in 2016 and 2017, there were 6 athletes on a team, but then they cut it to 4. So then it was 4 from then on. Now it's only 4, 2 girls and 2 guys. And there is one alternate girl and one alternate guy. So 2 alternates in case someone does get hurt. Yeah.
Gotcha. And if like if more than one person would get hurt, would that just be a voided spot to where you can't have somebody else, or is it just kind of empty?
Yeah, you can't. Once you claim your alternate, that's it. And I believe, I haven't read the rules for this year, but I believe once you start the weekend of competing, you also can't change them out. So I think that keeps people from saying, oh, I'm hurt, and then you trade in the girl that's better than you at that workout. You know what I mean? So it kind of keeps the skew from trying to get a specialist for something. But yeah, I guess it doesn't really do much because you can't really trade them out after you've signed in that Friday night for your event. You're stuck with your 4 through the weekend.
So what was that first event like for you?
The first event for me, it was in California. It was very hot, and it was vested, and it was do you know what Murph is? The Memorial Day Murph.
Yeah. Okay, go through it because I do, but I don't. Not.
Yeah, it's you run a mile and you do 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, and 300 air squats, and then you run another mile. So we did a team version of that where you had to litter carry, like a gurney, litter carry a mile. So one person's on the litter, then everyone else is carrying it, and then you do the movements, the push-ups, pull-ups, and push-ups and squats. You do that with a worm. So it's a bunch of sandbags tied together. And then the pull-ups are obviously individual. We did them chest to bar. And then you go back and you do another mile litter carry. So it was very long. It was very hot. It was vested. And it was hard. I remember being pretty messed up that night. Pretty shocked, I guess. But it was fun. Memorable workout for me anyway. I think for everyone on that team.
Before the event, like were there a lot of jitters? Were there, what was it? What was your mind going into it?
Yeah, I think we didn't really talk a whole lot going into it. I remember later at night, in California, so we pretty much had the whole day to just sit around and like think about it. And I also remember we were like staged for probably an hour, just sitting or standing there in our vests, because they had to corral everyone and make sure we were all on the same page. And so you had 40 teams of 6 athletes on each team lined up in your lines in your vests for probably close to an hour before we got to start the event. And then 3, 2, 1, go. And then all 40 teams, 6 athletes on each team, all took off running at the same time. I think there was like an 800-meter run to get to the litter to begin with. So you kind of had a lot of time to like elbow people and just get in fights, basically trying to get to the first litter. We had one really fast guy on our team, so he shot out ahead and he claimed the first litter, and then we just took off and broke out of the pack after that. But yeah, it was definitely nerve-wracking, especially being my first event ever and being just in that like big, huge cluster of people. But what are you going to do? You just dive right in and go for it, I guess.
That's pretty crazy though, just to be around that many people who are just fighting for it, just athletes out there competing. But what is it like around the other teams though? Is there any sort of like camaraderie, or is it all just pretty much straight, we're going for your throat kind of thing?
I think it just depends on which teams you're around. A lot of people are out there to kind of make friends and kind of, mess around and have a good time, which is great. But I think in my mindset and the teams I've always been on, we've been there more to perform and get the job done and win has always been the goal. So it's a little bit different. Not that it's hostile by any means, because it's not, just kind of in our own zone, if that makes sense. So it just kind of depends what atmosphere you're looking for, but you can find it all, Yeah.
Something like that is just kind of so cool to me to experience, because it's just like you're putting your body out there, and especially when you're doing it with the team, it's like, you're all counting on each other. It's just such a cool experience and environment to be in. Yeah,
unlike any other, really.
How would you compare your first CrossFit Games to your most recent? Like how have you changed?
I think just with experience, you kind of learn how to handle pressure a little bit. Hopefully just not be, I guess just to handle, the fear of not doing well and turn that into something that's positive and something you're able to help you perform better. Because everyone is a little bit afraid at first and jittery, and you don't want to let people down, just like you said earlier. So I think just with a little wiser, hopefully, you get a little better at competing and just a little more aware of what you're doing out there.
If you look at teams that have consistently been successful, gone to just say championships, you can definitely tell like when you get to a certain level, certain teams, certain athletes, they don't have those same mess ups, if you will, like during the beginning of the game, or those mental errors.
Exactly. And I think part of that would be just putting yourself in those pressured situations in practice. So you're more accustomed to it, and you're more aware of what it will feel like and the pressure and how to perform well under those circumstances. It's been doing harder things in the gym and just making sure that you're ready for whatever will come up.
Before CrossFit Games, do you know kind of going in what it's going to be like, what to really prepare for? Or is it just kind of like general be prepared for whatever?
Yeah, it's just general be prepared. You really have no idea. I mean, there's your typical movements that you'll see in CrossFit. There's the list of 15 or 20 things that you kind of have an idea about. But yeah, you'll have no idea on combinations. You'll have no idea on venues, nothing like that. So it's just a general be prepared, really. Sometimes they'll announce a WOD or two like a week out, but not really enough time to really try anything. That's about as much as they give you, though.
Yeah. I talked to a few guys who did strongman, and they said it's kind of like that too, where you just got to kind of prepare for so many different scenarios and so many different things that they use.
I think just being comfortable, being uncomfortable, that's about as much as you're going to have to do. It's just be put in weird positions and just hopefully you're fit enough and capable enough to get the job done.
It's such like a buildup of everything. Physically, you're built up. Emotionally, you have a buildup. Mentally, I'm sure there's a huge buildup before the event. But how does that all kind of cascade down towards the end, and how do you kind of, or do you have that period after that you just like, okay, I got to take some time to do something?
I think definitely that depends on who the athlete is and how long they've been doing it. But yeah, you take some time off afterward if you want it. And sometimes even if you don't want it, you still force yourself to, just to kind of refresh yourself and get ready. If you're going into another season, you have to kind of make yourself miss it a little bit first in order to be sustainable throughout the whole next year. So you take some time away, you go spend time with people you love, and you go out to eat and you go hang out and you just do just normal stuff, decompress a little bit.
It's just like, boom, it's over, now what kind of thing. Does that ever happen to, like, I mean, I guess you just go back into training, but does that ever happen to like a now what kind of mindset?
I'll let you know this year what that ends up being like. But yeah, they get into those retirement phases, or this is my last games phase. Same thing that probably college athletes go through as well when they graduate, But I think it's just about refocusing that energy into just the next new thing,
Yeah, I think that's another thing right there, is just like figuring out what is next, because I mean, obviously there's still so much time to do things that are interesting, that are fun, that are challenging. But how long does someone usually stay in and compete at that level?
I mean, yeah, it just depends on the athlete again and what their goals outside of CrossFit, I guess, are. Like what if they have other careers maybe, but you're looking at athletes doing this for over 10 years. If they choose to make it into more of a career type thing, there is longevity in the sport. I don't know what'll happen long term, like down the road with those sorts of people. But yeah, there's definitely opportunities for the people that are very top end and I'd say genetically gifted and able to handle volume for long term.
Gotcha.
That is definitely part genetics, but yeah.
What's the prize for winning the CrossFit Games? I know it probably changes somewhat.
Yeah, it changes a little bit, but I think for individuals, I think it's 100 grand, 70 grand. I don't know the drop off, but I know top is 100. And then for teams, it hasn't been announced yet either, but I believe it's 100 for a top team. And then you have like events throughout the year as well that'll reward cash prizes. So it just depends on where you want to compete and how much you want to compete.
Does CrossFit, do they allow for you to be sponsored by other companies along the way, so you can kind of like do your own thing too?
Absolutely. That's where I'd say most athletes' incomes, if they're full-time athletes, are coming from, is from sponsors of all shapes and sizes out there. But yeah, that's where a lot of I guess the sustainability of competing as an athlete comes from, is sponsorships. Something else
that I saw that you participated in, the Granite Games. What is that about? Like, what's the difference there?
That's I would say, bigger than a local comp. It was a sanctional last year, so it's kind of a stepping stone to get to the CrossFit Games this year. People will go there to qualify for the games, so it's the step before.
And is it pretty similar to kind of what goes down?
As far as programming, yeah, it's going to be pretty similar. Just not as many athletes, obviously, as the CrossFit Games, because that would be, CrossFit Games is worldwide. Granite Games is more regional. So,
being that the CrossFit Games are worldwide, so there would be one CrossFit Games then, right?
Yes.
So
there's only one.
So with all the different languages, like how is that kind of throughout the events? How is that kind of, I guess there's just multiple PA system, like different people on the PA or something?
Yeah, there are like translators there and stuff for the people that are not fluent in English. Luckily, I guess most other countries are fluent in English, I feel like, because they are. But yeah, there's definitely translators present with the foreign athletes and foreign teams.
That would definitely seem like at least some type of barrier to me. Not knowing. I guess you would pick up a lot from what's going on around you if you didn't understand the language. But I feel like it would be that initial period before that you're just like thinking, wait, what's going on here? It'd be kind of a weird situation to be in.
Yeah, you definitely need to be able to understand in order to know what the heck you're doing back there, for sure.
Is CrossFit, is it something that you have to qualify for each year?
You requalify every year, so it's completely refreshed with the start of every season.
I was looking at some of the rankings and stuff with the teams, with the athletes, and how does that work? Is it like based on the previous competition? Is it based, what is that kind of based on?
It's just based on open placements for now. So just where your team ranked in the open compared to other teams. Yeah.
I feel like there are a lot of benefits to it. If you're doing it, I guess, at a high level, maybe it's less sustainable potentially. I'm not really sure. But if you do it, you can definitely make those movements something that become very functional for everyday life. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that pretty much nails what CrossFit is on the head, for sure.
I guess to kind of wrap things up, what kind of advice would you have for someone kind of thinking about getting into CrossFit?
I'd say just don't be afraid to get your feet wet and try it out. And don't feel bad if it's not for you at the same time. I mean, it isn't for everyone, but at least go in and give it a shot and then see what you think about it. Because a lot of people do end up liking it, even though they don't think so. Just give it a shot, especially if you're into fitness or into working out, athletically minded, because it does click well with a lot of people. So
I really appreciate you coming on today and sharing some of your experience and some of the, what got you here. So it was good to talk to you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.